Die 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 din die da din die dee da dee da die din die da din die dee da dee da die dee die da din die da dee da dee da die da da din die da din die die ba-dum ba dee die 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 dee die dee 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 dee. Boker Tov! We are back with the laws of searching for Chametz. We are in chapter 111 in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Yesterday we finished off about looking for your Chametz in the barn. Do you need to? Do you not? We remember that if we put Chametz out for our animals, we need to check that area. But if we just put grain, we're going to assume that they ate everything, or if they didn't everything, it never became Chametz. We're in 111, number 5. We have to check all the places, crevices and cracks, much as possible. Crevices and cracks. So, meaning that you need to separate things. So it's not just necessarily enough to just do a perusal, but one needs to actually do their best to sort through things. And that's what he's going to say. You got to go through your clothing and the pockets of your clothing, but there are children, they put chametz into their pockets, and there are adults as well who do this. But they require bedika. So briefcase, purse, suitcase, any kind of lunch bag, cooler, any of those things. All you want to check all those things to make sure that you didn't leave any chametz in there, and you want to clean them out. And he gives some advice about how to do this. You should shake them out well. So, b'shas abir, it says you should shake them at the time of the destruction of the chametz. So, but ideally is when you're preparing for Pesach and you're going through different parts of your home. So, you're going to shake out, especially children's backpacks, and all these things, and pockets where you might have put some chametz, and that's going to be sufficient. Of course, the number one, the car. You got to clean your car. Even though we don't live in our car, we do put a lot of chametz in the car. And the blessing of bedikas chametz is not recited if one is not checking his house at this time. So remember, we began the chapter with bedikas chametz, right? That and there's actually there's a blessing which we say before we begin the search. But if you're only doing the searching of your closets and stuff like that before, right, you're not going to do it. This is only the night, the 14th, the night before Erev Pesach, the night before the night of the Seder. So really, all these things should have been looked at before. You should go through all these things before. Now we're just going to go back. We're now just going to go back to the to checking these places. What do you call them? Checking these places for the bedikas chametz, and that's good. Now let's say you're doing your check. Okay, let's adjust something here. You're doing your check of your car a couple days before, right? That you don't get you don't make a brach on it. And if you're only checking your car that night for whatever reason, I don't know, figure it out. You also wouldn't say bracha just in your car. Your car's on living areas, places that are now the question is an RV. What about an RV? Right? It's a car, but you can live in it. So that I would say you can make a bracha on. Okay, we'll put that in the updated Kitzur Shulchan Aruch that we put out. check your RV with a bracha. Now, in order to avoid the prohibition of owning chametz on Pesach, one of the things you can do is eat it up. One of the things you can do is, if you find it's no good, throw it away, or you can give it away to somebody who needs it. But sometimes there's product that we don't want to give away because it'd be a great loss. And so since the time of the 14th century, we've been able to perform a sale before Pesach, and usually we are going to assign a rabbi to be our shaliach on this sale, and it's called mechiras chametz. You are going to appoint the seller as your, agent, and fill out a form that says where the chametz is. It should say how they can get entrance to the area, right, where the key is kept. And you're going to fill all this out, and then you appoint somebody to be your agent. Now, this next part is going to deal with certain issues having to do with you're selling parts of your home, basically, but you're not selling you're selling access to them. You're not selling the property. You're not, breaking any laws here if you're not allowed to sublet. Right? We're just selling access. It's like, it is their room to use on Pesach, and let's get into it. Chadarim, a room that you sold to an idolater mechametz. So here, especially think about a warehouse, right? That's full of your chametz product, right? Your whiskey, beer, flour sales, whatever it is. Now you're not. That's actually the actual sale's not going to go through until the next day. You've appointed Rabbi Goldberg to be to do the sale for you, but it's actually the transaction is going to happen on the morning before Pesach. Well, some of it's going to be done earlier, and then there's a second sale. So, since there's a chance that property, that warehouse, is now going to be yours still the night of the search, you got to check it. You have to look for chametz there. So let's look into this for a moment. Okay. The Mishnah Brura disagrees with the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and he says you don't need to perform badikas chametz on rooms that you intend to sell to a non-Jew during Passover, provided that the sale specifically includes all the chametz found in the room, right? So what we do usually on the form is you list the kind of items, and then you also put in any other chametz that might be found. And although the widespread custom is to be lenient like this, the Mishnah Brura concludes that it's actually preferable to do two sales. You do one sale before bedikas chametz, okay, and then you're going to end up doing another sale potentially after. I know it's a little complicated. Don't worry about it. But this pertains to rooms that you'll be selling with the chametz that and not using on Pesach. You can't exempt yourself from the obligation to check for chametz by selling a room to a non-Jew that you're going to use. Right? You can't sell the room and then use it on Pesach. The way you're going to do like sections of your home is you're going to kind of tape them off, right? Or let's say you're away for Pesach. Okay. Sometimes certain schemes, but the goal is that we can't use the sale of chametz, mechiras chametz, to get us out of badikas chametz on something that we may use on Pesach, an area we may use on Pesach. That's the goal of that little sif. Number 7, before you begin your search, here we go, here's the bracha, Yivarach. Baruch atah Hashem Eloheinu melech haolam asher kisam mitzvosav v'tzivanu al biur chametz. Wait a minute. Biur chametz means to destroy chametz, and I'm going to check chametz. The answer is that the checking of the chametz is intimately tied to destruction. It's part of the destruction of the chametz. I would, we have a question here from one of our great students in this class. And they would like to know about selling their chametz to a let's say on their own. Do they need to have a rabbi do it? So the answer is, it's tricky. You want to do it the right way. And while, yes, you could do it, you'd have to really learn it and study it. And we have a video of my Rav doing it. You need the right forms to make sure that because the language is important to put in writing. It all has to be done in writing. It can't just be a verbal sale. It has to be in writing. There has to be money exchanged. There are many steps to make sure it's properly done. We actually do, I think, 7 different forms of sale to make sure that if one of them didn't work, then the other worked, right? Because let's say you just did one transaction, but then later on you found out that transaction was wrong. I don't know. Let's say you gave the person you sold the chametz to, they gave you a $100 bill. It turned out to be counterfeit, right? And then you're like, wait a minute. So let's say then you say, well, that wasn't a good sale. You gave me fake money. So we do many different kinds of sale so that if one doesn't work, then you have backup, and backup. And one of those is going to work. Okay. So you say this bracha before you begin searching on the 14th. That's the night before Passover. Who has sanctified us with commandments regarding the destruction of the chametz. Because this is all about getting rid of the chametz. And even though and even though you're not destroying it yet, you're just searching for it and looking for it. You're going to get it ready for destruction. Okay, because you're not going to burn it till the next morning. We say biur regarding destruction rather than bedikas chametz, and some people make that mistake innocently. Lefi. Because right after you do the search, you're going to say you're going to say the nullification statement, which is going to nullify any chametz you're not aware of. Nullification is a kind of biur. When you do bittul, it's a biur. When you do nullification, it's a destruction because it's no longer yours. It's no longer has any value. V'hu biur. The chametz which is not aware of it. You shouldn't interrupt. You shouldn't interrupt between saying the bracha and beginning the search for chametz. You shouldn't interrupt. You should try to just do it. If somebody wants to disrupt you, you should put your phone on silent and so forth. Don't get distracted when you're doing the bikas chametz. V'tov shelo yafsik. Don't stop. Don't stop. Ad gemara bedikas until you finish the whole bedika. Eile b'meshu minyan abdika unless it relates to the search. So if you have to pause for some reason, hey guys, can you grab me a ladder? Or hey, can you give me? That's not, as long as what you're involved in is doing the bedika, so then it's not a interruption. But one shouldn't take a phone call that has nothing to do with bedikas chametz. L'chaim. Let's say you got a number of houses and businesses you need to check. So you say, recite one bracha on all the places. You can also divide and conquer. You can say, okay, Shmuel, you check that house. Mindel, you check that. You can have people check for you under the same bracha, as long as they're members of the same household. Which each person taking responsibility for a different area. One should, as the homeowner, in the terms of that they are responsible for the home. They don't actually have to physically own it. They could be leasing it. And it's good to be actively involved, right? You shouldn't have the guy or gal who, say the bracha and say, okay, you guys go check. I'm just going to sit here and, twiddle my thumbs. That's not going to work either.
Yeah, more again about the sale. We can get back to that later. I see some more detailed questions. I always tell people to sell it through an agent, but we can talk more offline if somebody's really interested about doing it themselves. Now, there is a custom which I have, which is number 8. Yesh noigim. There's a custom before the search. Menichim pi say. You put little pieces of lechem, of bread, the place where you're going to do the searching. Our custom is Rachel, my wife. She wraps up 10 pieces and she hides them. And then it becomes my job to look for them with the kids. But there are those who say, hey, wait a minute, maybe not. So, and where's the custom from? Well, it comes from a few things. One is that you're saying a bracha. So you kind of want to find chametz. You don't want to be saying a bracha in vain. Ooh, okay, that's one concern. Shema lo yitzeh klum u'tiyeh bracha levatala. Upshita, however, it's obvious, kimi she'eino bodek karui, but one who doesn't perform the search properly, elishu kabetz, elu hapityois. So if all you're doing is collecting those 10 pieces, lo kima mitzvah bedika, you didn't fulfill your obligation. So ironically, a person who puts out 10, 5, whatever pieces, and then goes look, and then the other person looks for them, or the family looks for them, and only looks for those pieces, but doesn't look in the whole house, they're actually doing a bracha levatala because they're looking for stuff they know is there already. And the goal is to be looking for stuff that might not be there. So, but and also, we should wrap it in something so that, and you should remember how many you put out. You don't want to lose any of them. It's not the end of the world if one gets lost, because then you're doing the nullification and so forth. The Ramah and the Mishnah Berurah explain that, you know what? Even if you don't put out pieces and you do the check and you find no chametz, it's not a bracha levatala. It's not a blessing in vain, because the mitzvah is to search for chametz. So whether you find anything or not, you're doing your duty. Nevertheless, there are other authorities who are very in favor of the custom of putting out the bread, and everyone should do according to their custom. And number 9, hachametz hu mishayer, the chametz that leaves over la'achila or la'michira. Let's say you got some breakfast food, you're saving some stuff back, and you're not selling it, and you're not getting rid of it. So yanicha b'kodem abidika, you should put it in a safe place, mokum mushar tev, where it's really well guarded. V'kain hachametz hu moitze b'Pico, and also the chametz that you find when you're doing search tzarich lisroy for the machar that you're going to burn the next day. Yanicha b'kom shufar mishumar or mikushar. You should make it sure it's safeguarded and tied up. That nothing's going to get lost or fall out of the bag. The machar, put it in a place you're going to see the. So what I always do is you've done your search and you put everything that you're gonna not use for the next day that you're gonna burn, put it by the front door. Everything put right there that you're gonna be burning, make sure it's right there so you don't forget it in the house. The stuff that you're going to be eating the next morning, which I advise to do outdoors and not in the house, is you're going to put that also in its own place. And then in this way, a person is protected from inadvertently forgetting the chametz and then being in a big surprise on Pesach when they find the portion of Cheerios that they had left to have the next morning, and then boom, oh my gosh. Well, we'll get to that. Don't panic. Also reminder, shameless plug, I do have a class and it's a 2-page guide about cleaning for Pesach, which everybody should, if they don't have, download. You can watch the video where I go into depth about cleaning for Pesach. And everybody have a wonderful